Hello, subject matter experts. My name is Claire Chang, and I'm a psychometrician at SMT, Schroeder Measurement Technologies. On behalf of NMTCB and SMT, thank you for volunteering to participate in standard setting for the Certified Nuclear Medicine Technologist exam. During this video presentation, I will explain what standard setting is and your role in this important process. But first, let's begin with an overview of the Certified Nuclear Medicine Technologist, or CNMT, exam. The CNMT exam consists of 90 multiple-choice items that cover 5 content areas: radiation physics and detection, radiation safety and regulations, pharmaceutical and radiopharmaceutical agents, instrument operations and quality control, and clinical procedures. CNMT is an adaptive exam, which means that if a candidate answers an item correctly, the next item will be more difficult. If they answer incorrectly, the next item will be easier. Therefore, no two candidates will see the same set of items. This also means that higher performing candidates will get more difficult items, while lower performing candidates will get easier items. With an adaptive exam, a candidate's performance is analyzed using a mathematical model that generates something called an IRT score. An IRT score can fall anywhere between -4 and +4. So what IRT score does a candidate need to pass the CNMT? That is where standard setting comes in. The purpose of standard setting is to determine the score that a candidate needs in order to pass the exam. Candidates who pass the exam are not expected to be highly qualified in the field, but they are expected, at the very least, to be minimally qualified to practice. We refer to candidates who are minimally qualified or minimally competent as borderline candidates. Borderline candidates are the foundation of the standard setting process. As a subject matter expert, you will be asked to provide your judgment on how borderline candidates will perform on the exam. We will cover the details of the process later in the presentation. But first, it is important to understand what is meant by a borderline candidate. Who is the borderline candidate? Let's start with the requirements to sit for the CNMT exam. Candidates are eligible to take the exam if they have completed either an NMTCB recognized nuclear medicine technology program or an accredited program culminating in a certificate, associate, baccalaureate, or master's degree. In addition to meeting the requirements to sit for the exam, the borderline candidate knows just enough to practice competently and safely. If you are asked to recommend someone for an entry-level position, the borderline candidate would be the very last person you would recommend, but you would still recommend them because they have enough knowledge to perform the job. Ask yourself, what can this person do that qualifies them to pass the exam? What are the things they cannot do yet because they are not experts in the field? Picture someone who fits this profile. because you will return to it again and again throughout the standard setting process. There are a variety of standard setting methods available for setting, passing, or cut scores. We will be using the bookmark method because it is well suited for adaptive exams. The bookmark method involves reviewing a set of items that are arranged in order from easiest to most difficult. This set of items is called an ordered item booklet, or OIB for short, although you will be rating the items online instead of in an actual booklet. The difficulty level of an item is based on candidate performance data. An easier item is one that many candidates have answered correctly, while a more difficult item is one that fewer candidates have answered correctly. Beginning with the first item in the OIB, you will answer yes or no to the question, will 2 out of 3 borderline candidates answer this item correctly? You can also think in terms of whether a borderline candidate will have a 2/3 chance of answering correctly. As the items become increasingly more difficult, borderline candidates will be less likely to answer them correctly. Therefore, as you progress through the OIB, you will reach a point where you begin to consistently answer no to the question, will 2 out of 3 borderline candidates answer correctly? The last item in the OIB that you believe 2 out of 3 borderline candidates will answer correctly is your bookmarked item. You can visualize yourself placing a Post-it note on that item. The difficulty level of your bookmarked item, along with the items bookmarked by your fellow subject matter experts, will be used to help determine the cut score. By setting the cut score based on the performance of borderline candidates, those who are competent and qualified will pass the exam, while those who are not competent and qualified will fail the exam. I will illustrate this process with a hypothetical 10-item OIB. This item on CPR is the second easiest item in the OIB. Based on my subject matter expertise, I think 2 out of 3 borderline candidates will answer this item correctly, so I select yes. Remember that you can also think in terms of whether a borderline candidate will have a 2/3 chance of answering correctly. Item number 5 is more difficult than item number 2. But I think 2 out of 3 borderline candidates will also answer this item correctly, so I select yes. Item number 6 is more difficult than item number 5. I do not think that 2 out of 3 borderline candidates will answer this item correctly, so I select no. If I answer no to the rest of the items, then item number 5 is my bookmarked item. The CNMT OIB you will be reviewing has 201 items. Instructions for accessing the OIB will be provided at the end of this presentation. The OIB items are representative of the much larger pool of items from which the exams are created. Remember that the CNMT is an adaptive exam, so there is no single set of items that all the candidates see. Beginning with the first item in the OIB, you will decide whether 2 out of 3 borderline candidates will answer an item correctly. You will work your way through the OIB until you have answered no to 10 items in a row. 10 consecutive no ratings indicate that you are confident that the rest of the items in the OIB are likely to be too difficult for borderline candidates. I cannot stress enough how critical it is for you to rate each item according to whether borderline candidates will answer the item correctly. If you rate the items according to whether they should answer correctly, the cut score will be set too high. Every item is on the exam because it tests important, practice-relevant knowledge. Therefore, candidates should answer every item correctly. But in reality, we know that's not the case. And even a highly qualified practitioner will answer some items incorrectly. You can see from this diagram that if we set the cut score according to expectations about whether candidates should answer the items correctly, a lot of competent candidates will fail the exam because the cut score will be set too high. We don't want to fail competent candidates. Therefore, you need to rate each item according to whether borderline candidates who are minimally competent will answer the item correctly. In addition, when rating each item, think about the concept that is being tested. Is it a difficult concept to grasp or understand? If so, borderline candidates are likely to answer the item incorrectly. Is the concept being tested something that is general enough that all practitioners will know or be familiar with? If the item tests a specialized concept that not everyone deals with in their work, then it is likely that borderline candidates will not answer this item correctly. Also consider whether the item is written in a straightforward manner. If an item seems tricky or confusing, that makes it more likely that borderline candidates will answer it incorrectly. Are there any common misconceptions about some topics? Or are there mistakes that are commonly made by someone who has limited experience in the field? If the item is asking about knowledge that you need many years of experience working in the field to know, then it is also likely that borderline candidates will not answer the item correctly. Another thing to consider is that if you as an expert are not sure of the correct answer to an item, then the borderline candidate won't know the correct answer either. Overall, it is important to not overestimate the ability level of borderline candidates, but you also don't want to underestimate their ability, because then the cut score will be set too low. You should also take into account test-wise candidates, or those who are good at taking tests, such as eliminating options to get to the correct answer. This leads directly to the final consideration, which is one that is related to the way that the items are written. Distractors are the incorrect answer options, and they affect whether a candidate answers an item correctly. The more appealing the distractors are, the more likely it is that borderline candidates will answer the item incorrectly. Let's look at an example. Which Crayola crayon color is shown? All options contain the word green. If I don't know the shade of green that is pictured, then I will likely answer this item incorrectly. Now here's the same item, but with different distractors, and it makes a world of difference. The color looks green to me, and there is only one option that contains the word green. While I would not be able to tell the difference between aqua green and another shade of green, I can get this item correct simply by process of elimination. This example illustrates the importance of considering the strength of the distractors for an item. It makes a huge difference when determining whether borderline candidates will answer the item correctly. You are almost ready to begin rating the items in the OIB. But let's take a moment to review the task ahead of you. First, picture someone who meets the minimum eligibility requirements to sit for the exam. Second, spend some time thinking about the ability level of borderline candidates. What characteristics do they have? What will they know or not know? Can you picture someone you know who is minimally competent? What are their strengths and weaknesses? Then rate each item as a yes or no according to whether you think 2 out of 3 borderline candidates will answer the item correctly. Once you have reached 10 consecutive no ratings, please review the last item you rated yes to make sure that you're confident that that item is the most difficult one that 2 out of 3 borderline candidates will be able to answer correctly. During our webinar, I will present the results of your ratings. You will have the opportunity to discuss the item you bookmarked, as well as change your bookmark placement if you wish to. The goal of the webinar is to determine the IRT score that you, as a group, would recommend to the board as a cut score for the exam. Please keep in mind that the security of the items is of utmost importance throughout the entire standard setting process. Developing a certification exam is a lengthy and expensive process, so we ask that you keep all information confidential and do not discuss the exam content or standard setting process with anyone. Please be sure to review the items in a secure location and do not leave the items on your computer screen when you are not in the room. To access the OIB, you will log into SMT's Test Development Center using the link, username, and password that you will receive via email. After logging in, select Begin. Then select Item Development. And then select Take Exam. Enter the key name shown here and click Submit. This will take you to the first item in the OIB. Use the navigation buttons at the top of the screen to view and rate the items in the OIB. Your yes/no ratings are automatically saved. You do not need to click the Save button after each response. I will have access to all of your ratings, but please send me an email after you have completed your review to confirm the item that you have bookmarked. Thank you for your willingness to participate in the standard setting process, and I look forward to working with you. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me via email or phone. Thank you very much.